What's going on, guys? Thanks so much for tuning into the channel today. I want to thank you guys for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hear what I have to say on today's topic. If this is your first time on the channel, I would ask you please hit the like button, subscribe, and also if you would tap that bell notification. That'll notify you every time I upload. Right now, I'm doing my best to shoot for one upload a week, whether that's spending the day out on the lake fishing with the guys or covering rod, reel, line, or various tackle. I'm trying to put out as much information as I can with my schedule so you guys can benefit, and I also enjoy putting it out there just to put it out there. I've learned a lot since I started my bass fishing journey, and I would like to share some of that information I've gleaned to help other people who are trying to learn about bass fishing themselves. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So today I want to go over rod specs. In a lot of recent videos that I've posted or my friends have posted, we get a lot of stuff in the comments kind of poking fun at how many rods we have. And each one of those rods serves a purpose. Can you get it all done with one rod? Yeah. But can you do it all effectively with one rod? Not as much. So look at rods like tools. When you're going and you're building a house, can you drive a nail with a hammer? Yeah, absolutely. It's usually what that's meant for. Can you drive a nail with a screwdriver? Possibly, but it's not what it's meant for. So there's different tools for different techniques within bass fishing. So if I'm going out and I want to fish for a big bass that's in a lily pad field, I'm not gonna take a medium power spinning rod and toss a light line, small lure into the middle of those lily pads and expect good results. We've got to use the right tool for the right job. So that's the reason we as bass fishermen usually carry so many rods. It's not because we just want to flaunt our money. It's not because we feel like one certain rod is going to catch us more fish over another. It's because when we go out and we go fishing, we have different areas that we fish that require different tools. So more speaking of rods, usually we break rods down into two categories to figure out what they would excel at. So yes, length of your rod is going to play a factor. Generally, a longer rod is going to cast farther, be able to get the bait out there further, whereas a short rod tends to give you better accuracy for your casting. But today I want to cover power and I want to cover action, because when I first started out fishing, it left a lot of confusion to me to try and figure out what power do I need, what action do I need. Generally, if you're going to be a one rod type of fisherman, you want a moderate fast action, or you want a medium heavy fast action. Generally probably in that 6'10" to 7'2" range. And that'll cover most of what you want to do as a bass fisherman. But if you're really, really serious about the bass fishing, you want to make sure you bring the right tool for the job. So when we refer to power, we're talking about the backbone of the rod. And I'll use this Shimano Zodias to kind of illustrate what we have here. This Shimano Zodias is a 6'10" medium power fast action rod. So the power is going to encompass this area here. When we refer to the backbone of the rod, or you hear someone talking about the backbone of the rod, they're referring to this portion, the bottom half of the rod. This is where the rod would show its stoutness. So this Shimano Zodias is more for a finesse presentation. I've got light braid to a light fluorocarbon leader, and I'll use this to throw wacky rigs, Ned rigs, and drop shots. This is not something I'm going to throw up in the middle of lily pads. It's not something I'm gonna throw into reeds or some emergent vegetation. It's not gonna get the job done. Usually it's gonna get hung up, and it's not gonna have the girth that you need to be able to pull a bass out of that type of cover. This is something that you want to be able to finesse fish. So it's the light braid, it's the light line. You want to be able to have these fish in somewhat open water when you're fighting them on a rod like this. So medium power, and then the tip is a fast action. So let me explain how action works. When we say fast action, it basically refers to the point at which the rod tip starts to mesh with the backbone of the rod. So this one being a fast action, you'll see it starts to bend about 3/4 of the way down the shaft of the rod. And you'll see when you're shopping around that there's also extra fast. So an extra fast, or the faster the tip, the closer it gets toward the tip of the rod. Whereas when you go toward a moderate action, it goes closer toward the base of the rod. And so they all have different sorts of purposes in the way the actions work together with the powers. So this is a medium heavy, or excuse me, a medium fast. Let me bring up another example. The next one we're going to bring up is a Shimano Expride. And this one is going to be a medium heavy power with a moderate action. So again, when we are looking at the power, we're talking about this portion of the rod. And it being medium heavy, it's a little bit thicker than the medium was, which means it's going to be a little bit stronger. It's got a little bit more backbone to be able to handle a fish in cover or around structure and be able to fight a fish out of vegetation. It's got some strength to it. But we hear that moderate word in there, which is different. So remember, as I explained, when we have moderate, the action comes closer down toward the backbone. And so you'll see here, when we pull on the line, that action is closer toward the middle of the rod blank. So why is the question? Why do we need moderate action? On this specific rod, we want moderate action because of the bait we're fishing. This is a chatterbait. Most single hook type baits, you can get away with a fast action. On a chatterbait in particular, it gives the fish a little bit extra time to inhale the bait. Myself, I'm kind of an impatient fisherman, so when I feel a fish kind of nibbling at my lure, I'm gonna set the hook pretty quickly. And being a moderate action, it gives it a little bit more time in the flex of the rod before that bait starts ripping out of the fish's mouth. Also, when a fish inhales it, it has a little bit of flex so the fish can inhale it. So it gives it a little bit more time for, or a little bit more action to be able to work with the bait for the fish to either pull it in or the delay before my hook set pulls it out of its mouth. Generally, this leads to better hookup ratios. You'll also want moderate action for most of your treble hooked baits. So your crankbaits, your deep diving crankbaits, and maybe like a moderate fast for some of your swim baits, jerk baits, things like that. And in those cases, what the moderate action allows is for your fish to stay pinned. So a lot of time when you're fishing with treble hooks, you can quickly lose a fish because you've got these little hooks and they can jump in the air, toss their head, and throw that thing really, really quickly. But the moderate action allows the tip to flex a lot more so that they can keep that fish pinned to that lure. Another example, this one is also a 7.2 medium heavy. Expride. Difference being, this is a fast action. So I'm just gonna show you the action on this real quick since we already covered the medium heavy. So you can see, whereas the previous moderate action was bending somewhere in this area, this one is bending up here in this area. So the faster the tip, or the faster the action, the closer it is going to bend toward the tip. Now, what if we want to fish really, really sloppy stuff? We want to get into the nasty emergent vegetation, the fields of hydrilla. We want to get a frog in some nasty places. This is a 7'3", extra heavy, moderately fast tip, or moderately fast action. So the extra heavy, you've got an even bigger backbone. This is a stout rod. When I'm walking the frog, I really have to crack this thing with tight jerks in order for it to walk properly. You can't be lazy with the action on this, or with the with your personal action on this one. But again, we see moderate fast. So fast is gonna bend here, moderate is gonna bend here. This guy should be bending somewhere in here. Let's check it out. And there you are. So this is a very, very stout rod, a very heavy rod for pulling fish out of large lily pad fields, for pulling them out of thick grass, muck, nasty situations. And then we have the final example for you guys. This is a 7'6", heavy, fast action. So this is the current rod that I use for flipping. I'm planning on a different rod in the future for flipping, but this is what I use to flip right now. Again, being a heavy backbone, you got your stout, so you can pull fish out of heavy cover. Again, just like the frog rod, you can flip it up into some hydrilla. Actually, my first catch on this rod was punching through a submerged hydrilla grass flat, and I caught a 2.5 pound bass and pulled it out of all that vegetation. And so, being a fast action, we're going to, I don't want to pull it from there with it being wrapped around, but we're going to see it'll bend in this area here. So we see that our action is at that area. Again, faster the action, closer toward the tip. More moderate, closer toward the middle. So that about sums up our short series on rod powers and actions. I had to do a lot of research when I first started out trying to learn all of this information. What was rod power? What is rod action? And hopefully by pulling out a couple of my rods and physically showing you, that helps to register what a moderate is, or what a fast is, or what a medium is, or what a extra heavy is. And I'm hoping that by showing those examples, it can kind of expedite your learning curve and cut out some of the hours that I spent trying to learn this stuff. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in today. Thank you for your attention. If you're still here, again, please like the video, subscribe, share it with somebody who might be trying to learn bass fishing. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.